Hello, everyone. This is Staci. Welcome to The Landing. As we come to the close of January, this episode marks the final January journey, a month of traveling through stories and memories shared through oral readings. I hope you have enjoyed hearing these words written years ago just as much as I have enjoyed returning to them and giving them voice again. Before we begin today's final episode, I want to take you back for just a moment back to 1993. I was a college student then, sitting in an English classroom, learning how words can hold memory the same way our hands hold keepsakes. During that season, I wrote 2 pieces that have stayed with me far longer than any grade ever did. The first is titled My Blanket. It's a simple retelling of a family trip to the banks. One of those ordinary trips that turns out not to be ordinary at all. What came home with us became a family heirloom, but more than that, it became a reminder of warmth, togetherness, and the quiet ways love wraps itself around us. The second piece is an autobiography titled Island Breaths. It's shaped by history lessons shared by my dad and by the life I was living as I listened. It's about growing up island raised, learning to breathe in rhythm with the tides and understanding that where you come from is something you carry in your lungs, your stories, and your bones. These pieces were written years ago, but when I read them now, they still breathe. They still belong. And today, I want to share them with you. Let's begin with My Blanket. Today when I hold my blanket, its hackneyed softness carries me back to the day my father gave it to me. A gurgling boat engine echoes my frantic cry, "Daddy, Daddy, I left my doll blanket home." I had tossed it on my holly hobby pillow while Mama and I packed my clothes and toys for our week-long boating trip to the Outer Banks. My pink terry cloth doll blanket had lulled me to sleep since birth. Daddy simply had to steer our white shrimp trawler back towards home, 45 minutes away. My father's eyes immediately screamed that there was no way he was going to turn our loaded boat around to mend my oversight. Appalled that I, Daddy's baby girl, was not going to be appeased, I pouted for nearly 10 minutes. Bottom lip puckered, I sat alone near our boat's side and let the flying water spray crash against my hands. But just as my 2-year-old naivety, that assured me of Daddy's ability to fix anything, began to waver, I noticed Daddy releasing our trawler's wheel and sliding his snowy undershirt off of his tanned, freckly back. He placed it into my salty hands, promising, "Daddy's shirt will make a better blanket, baby." From that moment on, his undershirt became known as My Blanket. My blanket and I were inseparable. We played house together in my parents' spacious bedroom. I, the proud mother, nurtured my blanket, the cooing infant, for hours. We tiptoed through towering kindergarten doors 3 years later. When I began school, my blanket was the first to know about my 2nd grade crush on David, the stud of the 3rd grade. It comforted my aching stomach in 6th grade when menstruation became an abrupt reality. My blanket muffled my yelps of excitement when I was asked out by a certain boy and sopped up my tears when I was dumped by that same certain boy. It absorbed my animalistic trumpet groans when I rehearsed my solo piece for homecoming's halftime performance. My blanket covered my trembling eyes when I slept in my dormitory bed for the first time. And all the while it remained a secret, known only by those who knew me between the ages of 2 and 6. Since my blanket is a white Fruit of the Loom undershirt, it was easily hidden in my dresser drawers, suitcases, pillowcases, shoe boxes, book bags, and clothes hampers. I often wanted to share it with others so they too could enjoy my treasured jack of all trades, but my apprehension sealed my secret airtight. Anticipating laughter and "you baby" stares, I forced my blanket to live as a stowaway for nearly 15 years. Today, my blanket has been freed from its incognito lifestyle. All who now see it lying on my floral printed pillow merely see a ragged childhood habit that would polish well with pledge. Once newly white, my blanket has been torn by nails, cut by scissors, stained by Coca-Cola, burned by light bulbs, dirtied by floors, and thinned by spins with Tide, Gain, Cheer, Bold, and Surf. Still, I see my blanket as a delicate bank, created from my father's ingenuity and filled with my memories of youth. Only I can gaze through my blanket's plainness and see its colorful rainbow, more aptly called my life. Together with my blanket, I too have been scarred by the wearing of time. I am no longer the flawless 2-year-old child who accepted my blanket 19 years ago. This knowledge is made bearable, though, for my blanket's dingy threads will always keep that trusting little girl nearby. And the final piece for this month is titled Island Breaths, an autobiography by Staci Davis. And again, this was written in November of 1993. This begins with a poem written by my father in 1976, titled Our Island. Surrounded by sparkling water be, protected by beaches from the sea. In the beginning, a virgin land, visited first by the red man. A paradise they had found, with their families they settled down. Game and fishes enough for all, wheat and grain it grew tall. White men started getting close as they settled along the coast, so the red man had to leave to make room for another breed. Along the banks settlements grew, but with hurricane winds they left too. To our island, more shelter from storm, came our beginning where we were born. Things have changed since the first red man, tourists coming as fast as they can. Will we be leaving like all the others, or will we stay and make them brothers? In the years ahead, who knows our fate? I just hope we're not too late. Our island, please let me stay. This, dear God, I do pray. Every place has its beginning, and Harkers Island was necessity. In 1896 and 1899, the island of Shackelford Banks experienced 2 destructive and fierce storms. Winds and water combined to create a storm surge that eventually vacated the entire island. Most of the inhabitants of Shackelford Banks realized that they could no longer risk their family's safety, so they chose to move inland 3 miles across Back Sound to a sparsely settled Harkers Island. The evacuation was slow, for the homes were removed by sections and placed across 2 boats called dories. Many bankers returned to Shackelford and moved the graves of their loved ones too. The thought of their bones washing away was hard for them to bear. Shackelford Banks is a barrier island. It was granted in 1705 to Francis Shackelford, after whom the island was named. The inhabitants of this island claim to always have lived there. Their origins remain unknown today. Cape Lookout figured prominently in their story, though, and in time they came to refer to themselves as Cape Bankers, a contraction of Cape Bankers. Natural causes forced the Cape Bankers off of their island in the early 1700s. I remember camping at the banks when I was a small girl. Our camp was named Sand Trap, for it really trapped the sand. Daddy, Mama, my two sisters, and I would pack our belongings aboard our boat and stay on the banks for days at a time. Our camp was our home away from home. We did without modern conveniences and enjoyed community living. In the early 1980s, our banks began to change. Outsiders started moving into our area. Unknown to us, the bank's land had become an issue for lawyers and governmental agencies. After months of pleading for our homeland, Shackelford Banks was declared a wilderness area under the control of the United States Park Service. Tears streamed from our eyes in December of 1985 as we islanders stood on our island and watched smoke cloud the horizon from camps being burned by their owners on a land that was no longer theirs. Even before K-Bankers, though, Indians lived on Harkers Island. These Indians had some knowledge of engineering and tried to build the first causeway in our part of North Carolina. They attempted to construct a road from the eastern tip of Harkers Island to Cape Lookout. This road was made of shells. The channel currents were so strong that the Indians could not complete the road. The road kept washing away. Shell Point is a point of land in Carteret County located east of the village of Harkers Island. The point was named for the very large mound of shells supposedly left there by Indians over a long period of time. Before our roads on the island were paved, they were covered with dirt and shells. My cousins and I used to search through the crunchy roads for unbroken shells, which we would clean and use for play. Sometimes we would also find shark teeth, arrowheads, spearheads, pieces of pottery, and stone knives on our roads. My mama would help us make necklaces from our findings. We would use yarn, string, knots, and glue to hold our unique jewelry together. My daddy told me once that even a skeleton was found among the shells of our road. The sand dollar is a shell which symbolizes Christ. Its circular shape is like the crown of thorns placed upon Christ's head. The image of 4 nails and then another from a Roman sharpened spear are found within the circle. One side shows the Easter lily with its center star that shined brightly for the shepherds as they traveled from afar. The Yuletide poinsettia is painted on the shell's other side and tells that Christ was born on Christmas. The shell center holds signs of peace, 5 white doves, which can be seen when the sand dollar is broken in half. I remember clamming with my family as a child. My 2 older sisters and I would sometimes play swimming games while my mother and father clammed. We would dive to the sandy bottom below us and look for beautiful white sand dollars. Whoever found the most shells won the game. To officially end our game, we would count the sand dollars that had been stashed in our bathing suits and determine who had the most. Then we would take turns, the winner going first, tracing the shell's circular shapes, slashes, poinsettias, and lilies. Next, we would break them in half to free the little white doves that slept inside. We called our sand dollars Holy Ghost shells, for we knew their story. On one eventful winter night, a rum runner, a boat which carried illegal whiskey into port during the Prohibition, came near Cape Lookout. The boat mistook a local fisherman for the Coast Guard and tried to flee the area. While the rum runner was changing its course, it hit a shoal and ran aground. In order for the boat to get off the shoal, it emptied its illegal load by throwing sacks of whiskey into the salty waters around it. The boat escaped, but the liquor did not. For the following morning, islanders began finding the whiskey on the shore. Word spread quickly, and soon most islanders were grabbing booze left by the booze yacht and hiding it from sight. In the winters of the 1930s, the coast of North Carolina knew the meaning of economic depression. Along the Outer Banks, fishing revenues were made unusually tenuous by the low prices paid for fishermen's catches. Some of the islanders took to yopine harvesting in an effort to survive the bitter winter. The spirit of the people never broke, though. They somehow survived. Some of my earliest memories of home revolve around songs sung to me by my parents. Mama would often place me across her belly, cradle me in her arms, pat my narrow back, rock me back and forth, and sing, "Bye, bye, baby bunting," until my small eyelids turned to lead. But sometimes Daddy would relieve Mama and sit me upon his sturdy lap, bounce his skinny knees up and down, hold each of my trusting hands in his, and sing the boujat until I became intoxicated with sleep. I still can hear his voice singing, "This way, that way, to the Cape they run. The coming of the boujat put the fishing on the bum. Some folks lost their religion and backslid by the score. The king lock stoppers stood ace high when the boujat ran ashore." I visited the island not long ago. Many of my friends and family members can no longer be found there. Yes, even my 2 sisters have moved away. But a vital part of my being remains, my youth, a youth that I treasure and hope to keep close through the stories I have been given from the place of my roots. As we come to the end of this January journey, I'm reminded that stories don't age the way we do. They wait. They hold their breath. And when we return to them years later, they open right back up. Reading these pieces again has felt like standing in familiar places, listening for voices that shaped me, and remembering how deeply rooted our beginnings really are. Thank you for taking the time to sit with these words written long ago and for letting them live again through listening. As January closes, may you carry forward whatever these stories stirred, memory, warmth, belonging, or simply a quiet moment of reflection. The journey continues, just in new ways. Until next time, thank you for being here and for listening. Thank you again for joining us to The Landing. This podcast is brought to you by the Core Sound Waterfowl Museum and Heritage Center. I am your host, Staci Davis Baisden, and today's podcast was produced by April Davidson. Tune in next week as we continue learning, sharing, and remembering together. If you'd like to hear more, check out our previous episodes where you get your podcasts. Until then, stay safe and be kind.